recipe number 2 is the butter bean and chard soup. Now, this delicious soup is rich in protein, making it a great meatless meal option as we move toward a plant-forward way of eating. And cancer prevention guidelines recommend that we cut back on red meat. So you don't have to eliminate it, just cut back. The recommendation is that we don't have more than 500 grams per week, but what does that look like? If you look at a deck of cards, that's about 100 grams. You can also think about the palm of your hand, that would be about 100 grams. So if we're saying 500 grams per week, that would be, you could have that size 5 times per week. So you could still have some red meat. But we also want to introduce more plant foods in the diet and more plant proteins. And so dried peas and beans and lentils is the best way. Well, I shouldn't say the best way, but it is one of the key ways to add plant protein to the diet, and protein we need for healing, tissue repair, and building muscle. And then the Swiss chart in this recipe ups our intake of green leafy vegetables. And these are your non-starchy vegetables, and that is what the cancer prevention guidelines recommend we increase. And they add several health protective compounds as well. Okay, off to the kitchen. I see some interesting foods on the table there, on the counter.
Yes, so yes, we're making a butter bean soup. Butter bean, maybe new to you. It is a larger bean, really nice and creamy. I love the texture of it. We don't use it that often, and it might be because it's maybe a little harder to find. This was available in our local grocery store around here, but if you can't find butter beans, you can definitely use, they have these lima beans, these giant lima beans, which are really nice. They're actually a little bit bigger. I'll show you the difference. The butter bean is probably like twice the size of like a kidney bean, and then this like giant lima bean is probably twice the size of that. So I love the idea of these larger beans. That gives you this really nice sort of meaty mouthful in this soup. So like Daniela talked about, really good plant-based protein option, but it's really nice and satiating too, to have like a nice bigger bite. So we're using these butter beans. You can use any other beans that you like for this, but we're going to start off with some of our aromatics and make it pretty simple here. So we're using a shallot. You can use an onion, you can use garlic, carrots, celery, whatever you like for aromatics. I'm keeping it simple, using one ingredient, one of my favorites, which is this shallot, which is this nice sort of milder onion. Has a little bit of a sweetness to it as well. And just going to cut it up into slices or rings. You can dice it up if you want. Again, I'm trying to match the bite size of this butter bean, of this larger bean. So I'm going to make everything a little bit bigger for the bites. And so I'm going to use 2 shallots. This. Again.
And shallots, Jeremy, me and my tidbits, are more concentrated source of protein, fiber, micronutrients, and minerals than the actual onion. I did not know that, but I don't think we really use a large amount of it for it to be a big difference, but I thought that was a cool thing to know.
Love it. See, shallot facts.
Shallot facts.
Love it. All right, so we have these beautiful little slices of our shallot, and I'm going to put it into our pot. I have a couple tablespoons of olive oil in here. I'll show you what's going on. Gentle heat, just a medium heat. I don't want anything too aggressive. I just want to soften them a little bit. I am using 2 tablespoons of olive oil, a little bit more than I guess what you might typically need to start off a soup, but you can use less if you want. I like a little bit more olive oil in here. I think it just finishes the dish a little bit better because we're going to be adding a lot of greens to this as well. So shallots in. I like chili flakes. This is optional. Obviously, if you like a little bit of heat, you can add heat. If you don't have to. Here's where you can add any other herbs as well, if you like. If you want a little bit of dried oregano, you can add some dried oregano to that. You can add some basil, whatever you like, some garlic. And already the aroma of that olive oil, sort of softening the shallots is beautiful. And then we're gonna get to our greens. So for this, we're gonna be using this beautiful chard. Springtime, you're gonna start to see a lot of greens. Spinach would be fantastic. Dandelion is one you probably start to see more often of as well. Grew up in a lot of dandelion. You can use rapini, you know, any other greens that you like would be great with this. Just wash really well. And then again, big pieces. I'm using big leaves for this soup, okay? So once we've softened it, about a minute or two, again, I don't need to get much color on this. But once it starts to become just slightly translucent, here, again, it's hard to tilt the screen, but there you go, a little bit better. I'm gonna go ahead and add my drained and rinsed beans. Put that through, just incorporate that with the olive oil. And then nice big handful of our chard, which doesn't need much time. Like it's a very, very quick soup. The chard, you can cook it down if you want it to be even softer, but I like giving it maybe even like a couple minutes. So I'm filling it up pretty much till it hits the lip of the pot. This will reduce quite a bit as it cooks down. So about 2 cups, but again, depending on the size of the pot that you're using. Okay, and then we're gonna add our broth. Now, again, you could just add water to this. If you don't have any broth on hand, it's gonna still taste great. And just season it to taste at that point. If you have like a veg broth or chicken broth, you can add that as well. So I have some simple veg broth here. So add in about 4 cups. And that's at this point, I'm gonna put a lid on and just let it soften and wilt the chard. Like looking for my lid that fits. This will have to do. Larger. So we'll give that a couple minutes.
You're just showing us, you know, that anything goes in the kitchen and you can still make a great meal, right?
Really.
I'll add to that just because we're talking about plant proteins and iron is one of the minerals that we talk about absorption differences between an animal protein versus a plant protein. So the butter beans, I like saying that, just the alliteration, the butter beans, they provide about 23% of our daily requirement for iron, but we're not absorbing all of that. But because it's coupled with the Swiss chard, which interestingly enough, it also has about 22% of daily value for iron in a cupful. Because the Swiss chard also has vitamin C in it, and Jeremy also pointed out the lemon. Are we adding lemon to this? Yeah, cool. So between those two, the vitamin C helps us absorb about 50% more of the iron from the butter beans. So I know I was long-winded in my explanation, but that is one of our favorite power couples, is the plant protein food that has iron and your vitamin C rich food.
Lovely. Yes. So when you were talking about it, I figured, oh, maybe we'll finish it with a little bit of lemon there as well. But I guess you have something in the Swiss chard, so no worries there. Okay. Giving it a couple minutes just until it wilts, and then we're ready to finish. So I've got my bowl ready to plate. We're going to add a little bit of Parmesan cheese. This is optional. This for me is, in terms of flavor, it's a really, really nice way to bump up the flavor a little bit where you don't need a lot. Because it's a sharper cheese, a little bit goes a long way, which is really, really nice. But that's optional as well. And then just a little callback from the first recipe. If you have any of those fresh herbs, you know, we saved some, mixed it with a little bit of olive oil. We can use this as a nice little topping for it as well. So showing how this can sort of translate into multiple dishes. And we are just about ready to go here. So once the greens are nice, wilted, then I'm ready to plate. So we can season to taste at this point. A little pinch of salt, and if your broth or stock already has a little bit of seasoning, has a little salt in it as well, then you might not need too much.
And also if you're, sorry, if you're needing to watch your sodium intake, you know, a few things to keep in mind is that when you're buying the canned butter beans or any kind of canned good, look at the ingredient list and see if you can purchase it without salt. That should be really easy to do these days. Also, rinsing them can help a little bit. And then, like Jeremy said, the Parm cheese is optional. The addition of salt is optional. Also, the liquid you're using, you can use a low salt variety as well.
Beautiful. All right, so just spooning this into our bowl, getting some more shallots, some of that chard, some of those butter beans. I love it too, Nelly, when you mentioned the alliteration of the butter bean. It's just
Yeah.
a fun word to say, or pair of words. All right. So we have beautiful bowl
Beautiful.
of our butter bean and our Swiss chard. And we'll finish it with a little bit of lemon. And just to help balance it out. And using my fingers to trap the seeds, no seeds in there. Nice little bit of parm up top. And then if you want that extra little bit of herbs from the dish before, you can put that in. But if not, with this just wonderful, comforting bowl of soup. And again, the cook time is like under 10 minutes, like really, really simple, especially if we're using those canned beans, which are really great, convenient item to have in your pantry. Drain and rinse, ready to add, and then any beautiful fresh greens that catch your eye at the farmer's market or grocery store in the spring. So there we go, our butter bean and Swiss chard soup